Do you feel remorse for what you did?
He is a pioneer in the world of rap, but now Slick Rick is in danger of being deported from the U.S.
When people talk about hip-hop legends, certain names rise to the top without debate. Biggie, Tupac, Nas, Jay-Z. But long before most of them ever picked up a microphone, there was a man who changed the way rap music was written forever. A man whose rhymes didn't just brag or battle or boast, they told stories. Real stories, fables, cautionary tales, adventures filled with characters, drama, and consequences. That man is Slick Rick, also known as Rick the Ruler. With his eye patch, thick gold chains, and unmistakable British accent, Slick Rick was larger than life. In 1988, his debut album, The Great Adventures of Slick Rick, introduced the world to a new kind of rap, vivid, cinematic, and unforgettable. Tracks like Children's Story became anthems, shaping not just a moment, but an entire approach to hip-hop lyricism. But Rick's own life was about to take a turn that even he couldn't have scripted. In 1990, just 2 years after his rise to stardom, he was arrested for a shooting that left his cousin wounded and an innocent bystander injured. It was a story that shocked fans, nearly ended his career, and put his freedom and his legacy on the line. Today, we're going deep into the life of Slick Rick, from his childhood in London to the streets of the Bronx, from hip-hop's golden age to the prison cell that threatened to silence him forever. This is the story of Slick Rick, the shooting that changed everything.
Of artists that makes Redman.
Okay.
First of all, KRS-One. Then it's Slick Rick. That's where I got the personalities from.
Right.
You know, Slick Rick had mad personalities. He was talking to himself on record. That's where I picked that up from.
Who is the best rapper that ever lived?
I would probably say Slick Rick, Rakim, or Ice Cube.
Are you serious?
The best story?
Are you serious?
Bro, the best.
Are you serious?
Yes, I am.
No, you're not.
The best storytellers are Biggie
no, you're not.
and Slick Rick.
The best storyteller?
Biggie and Slick Rick.
Slick Rick is...
Richard Walters was born on January 14th, 1965, in Mitcham, South London. His early years were far from glamorous. His family lived modestly, and like many immigrant households in England at the time, survival was the focus. But young Richard was different. At the age of 18 months, an accident left him blind in his right eye. For the rest of his life, he would wear an eye patch, a feature that would one day become a signature part of his image. As a child, he was quiet, often shy. But while he might not have been the loudest voice in the room, his imagination filled the silence. Richard loved stories, fairy tales, comic books, and the kind of larger-than-life characters that could sweep you into another world. That gift for imagination would later fuel one of the most unique voices in rap history.
Introducing the incredible Slick Rick.
All of you non-pullers are frontin', wave your arms around like you're some octopus or something to better ya. Any chick you want, I'm getting her. Rob people, mad ignorant, etc. Who the one who entertain and fume with, who you low-breed humans can't be in the same room with? Wrap it up, thief excrete. Every rapper rap maggot underneath Rick's feet, evicted. Trying to find stuff to hit with, even your kids tell you that you ain't to Slick Rick. Though you pretend to be glory, I'm number one, that's the end of the story.
When he was 11, his family immigrated to the United States, settling in the Bronx, New York. This was the late 1970s, the birthplace of a cultural revolution. Hip-hop was just beginning to take shape at block parties, in rec centers, and on the streets. DJs like Kool Herc and Grandmaster Flash were experimenting with turntables, creating breaks that dancers could move to. MCs were beginning to hype up the crowd with rhymes. Richard, now a teenager, was drawn to this new sound. But he wasn't trying to be a DJ, and he wasn't the best dancer. His strength was in words. He began writing rhymes that sounded different from what others were doing. Not just chants or crowd control lines, but stories. By high school, he had teamed up with another aspiring rapper, Dana Dane, to form the Kango Crew. The two performed at local parties, rocking their signature Kango hats and building a reputation. Even then, Rick had that flair, the accent, the wit, the confidence on the mic. He stood out. If you are enjoying this content, please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. In 1984, everything changed. Rick crossed paths with Dougie Fresh, one of hip-hop's rising stars. Doug was known as the human beatbox, able to create full rhythms and drum patterns with just his mouth. When Rick joined Dougie Fresh and the Get Fresh crew, the chemistry was instant. Together, they recorded La Di Da Di in 1985, a track that would become one of the most iconic in hip-hop history. No hooks, no big production, just Doug beatboxing and Rick telling a story. The song spread like wildfire, eventually becoming one of the most sampled rap tracks of all time. Everyone from Snoop Dogg to Miley Cyrus would eventually borrow.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Old school shit, New York. Let's go. You know what? Yo, beat this. Lordy-dotty. 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 We like to party. We don't cause trouble and we don't bother nobody. Where?
Lottie-dotty. Lottie-dotty what? Lottie. Lottie. You know what? Yo, peep this. Lottie-dotty. We like to party. We don't cause trouble. Don't bother nobody. Where?
But in 1988, Slick Rick truly stepped into his own spotlight. Signing with Def Jam Records, he released his debut album, The Great Adventures of Slick Rick. The record was a masterpiece. On Children's Story, he played both narrator and character, rapping a cautionary tale about a young man who turns to crime and pays the ultimate price. Mona Lisa showcased his humor and charm. And hey, Young World proved he could inspire as well as entertain. The album went platinum. Rick was now one of the brightest stars in hip-hop's golden era. With his eye patch, extravagant jewelry, and regal persona, he became instantly recognizable. The ruler had arrived.
I still was scared because it's the first time I had to sleep in the Crackhead Hotel by Crotona Avenue by Dodge High School. So that was the only place I could sleep, $35, they let me sleep. But they was really shooting heroin out the window, busting dudes' heads with 40 bounces, bottles all day, cops up and down. It was scary for a 14-year-old kid. I would listen to Slick Rick all night long on repeat. So I know all his ad-libs. He got me through that time of my life. I had the Walkman and I would just listen to Slick Rick only.
But success brought problems. Money, fame, and family all collided in ways Rick never expected. And in the middle of it all was his cousin, Mark Plummer.
Where I go, I hear beat me, beat me. All these idiots talking about you can't defeat me. I'm big, I'm bad, I'm mad. That's when I reckon all these new intelligent words ain't saving you from second. So know who's first, you dumb roach around me crumbing. Doodle on yourself when you're here, the ruler coming. Slick Rick, yo, MTV Raps.
Mark Plummer had been working as Rick's bodyguard. At first, it seemed like a natural fit. Family looking out for family. But soon, tensions began to rise. Plummer became demanding, and according to reports, he began harassing Rick, even attempting to extort money. Their relationship broke down completely. Rick claimed Plummer was a threat to his safety. In some accounts, Plummer had broken into Rick's home, terrorized his family, and even fired a gun into the house. Whether all of these details were true or exaggerated in the heat of conflict, one thing was certain. Rick no longer felt safe. And when a man feels unsafe, especially one living in the often violent world of late 80s New York, paranoia can take over.
Never told them, and I can't say this on here, but I seen Slick Rick get busy with my own two eyes, like on another level, with these eyes.
Oh, I understand.
Back in the days, like
I was on tour with Rick, and Rick would be, and all these peasants and guns dropping out of hands, 9 millis dropping out. Like, Rick is just wild out. But Rick is my man. Like, I love him. I respect him. His wife,
That's
man.
the same
He's
words
amazing.
I heard him use way back in the days. Like,
yeah,
and I was
peasants.
an innocent bystander. I wasn't Fat Joe the rapper. I was like,
these peasants, Al, I'm just trying to avoid the peasants. I was like, yeah.
By 1990, Slick Rick was carrying firearms for protection. And on July 3rd of that year, the paranoia, fear, and anger exploded in a way that would change his life forever. If you are enjoying this content, please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Rick was driving through the Bronx when he spotted his cousin. The tension that had been building for months boiled over. Rick pulled out a gun and opened fire. Shots rang out. Plummer was hit. But in the chaos, one of the bullets struck an innocent bystander, a man who had nothing to do with their feud, just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Thankfully, he survived, but the damage was done. Rick panicked. Instead of waiting for the police, he sped off, leading them on a high-speed chase. Eventually, his car crashed, and Slick Rick was arrested.
That Plummer had threatened his life and that he fired at him out of fear.
The headlines were explosive. One of rap's brightest young stars was now facing charges of attempted murder, assault, and criminal possession of a weapon. His career and his freedom hung in the balance.
Do you feel remorse for what you did?
Yeah, I guess I would say I handled it in an adolescent type of a fashion, you know what I'm saying? I should have handled it in a more, adult fashion, you know what I'm saying?
The summer of 1990 was supposed to be Slick Rick's victory lap. His debut album was still selling, his influence was growing, and a second album was on the horizon. Instead, he found himself behind bars, awaiting trial for one of the most serious crimes a rising star could face: attempted murder. The hip-hop press was stunned. Fans couldn't believe it. How could the same man who told the playful tale of Mona Lisa or warned kids in Hey Young World now be accused of shooting his own cousin in broad daylight and hitting an innocent bystander in the process?
That was his ego talking. That's the type of shit he would say on his records. They all want to be him, the ruler. He used to play that shit, the ruler.
The name is Slick Rick, the ruler, the rich ruler, by the way.
Oh, man. Have you seen the pictures of him with the king hat on and jewelry? He was as crazy as a bag of angel dust. I mean, personally, crazy.
What's up, kid? How you make it out in here, kid?
Appreciate your freedom a lot more, the little things. You don't be so materialistic afterwards. Stuff like that, Appreciate family life.
But the reality was grim. The state of New York didn't care about Slick Rick the entertainer. They saw Richard Walters, a man with a gun who had opened fire on the streets of the Bronx. The charges stacked up quickly. 2 counts of attempted murder, 2 counts of assault, use of a firearm, and reckless endangerment. If convicted on all charges, Rick was looking at decades in prison.
Yo, that nigga represented, man. That boy don't take no shorts, man. Come on, man. You know what I'm saying? That is something that eventually you have to grow out of. If you don't grow out of it, you'll be in here. Yo, they've got grown brothers in here, you know what I'm saying? Yo, man, you grown. I'm talking about 40, 50, you know what I'm saying? So come on now, you know, that don't even look right, you know?
Rick's defense team argued that the shooting was not the act of a cold-blooded criminal, but of a man pushed to the edge by relentless harassment. His cousin Mark Plummer, they said, had been threatening Rick's life and terrorizing his family. This was not premeditated. It was desperation. But desperation doesn't change the fact that bullets were fired and an innocent man was hit. After months of legal wrangling, Rick made a difficult decision. In 1991, he pled guilty to 2 counts of attempted murder. It was a calculated move. Avoid the risk of a maximum sentence at trial and instead accept a plea that would see him serve between 3.5 and 10 years. For a young man in his 20s, at the peak of his career, it was devastating.
I was locked down, you know, and stay positive and come out there for your family and learn from your errors, you know. Don't get caught up with Taki ain't playing. You know what time it is. It's just get out there, get a little nonsense 9 to 5 and live happily ever after and grow, you know.
Life inside prison was a world away from the flashy image Rick had built for himself. The gold chains and tailored suits were replaced by drab uniforms. The freedom to perform on stage was replaced with strict routines and the constant threat of violence behind bars. And yet, even in prison, Slick Rick's legend grew. His voice could not be silenced.
The roadmap for other records that they make. Ricky will make a great record and the next record won't sound nothing like it.
Grown folk records. No, I ain't come to diss about Shorty who was like Tin Man from The Wiz of Oz. Mentally, the kid was kind of smart, though he thought he was a coward that lacked real heart. Though not the type to play adventurous and gallant, everybody loved him. Kid had talent, good moral values, a decent brand, still kept believing that he wasn't a real man. Cause just like clockwork, always a running, smart mouths trying to play the bully role upon him. Only one eye, and due to the loss of it, even when he was right, had to back down because of it.
Def Jam Records, led by Russell Simmons, refused to abandon him. Simmons saw Rick not just as an artist, but as a cultural figure too important to let disappear. While Rick served time, Def Jam released his second album, The Ruler's Back, in 1991. Though it lacked some of the polish of his debut, it kept his name alive. Then came Behind Bars in 1994, an album recorded partially during his prison stint. The title track, with its chorus of "Locked up, they won't let me out," captured his reality in a way that was raw, authentic, and haunting. If you are enjoying this content, please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. For fans, hearing Slick Rick rap from Behind Bars was surreal, as if one of his children's stories had come true, but with him as the tragic main character. Meanwhile, outside the prison walls, hip-hop was evolving. The early 90s saw the rise of West Coast gangster rap, with NWA, Dr. Dre, and Snoop Dogg dominating the charts. On the East Coast, new voices like Nas, Biggie, and Wu-Tang Clan were emerging.
Supposed to be a role model. All I could do is try to be as positive as possible, you know? Because, like I said, this ain't no permanent spot, you know?
In another timeline, Slick Rick might have been right there with them, shaping the sound of the decade. Instead, he watched from a distance, his career on pause, while the culture he helped pioneer exploded into the mainstream. And yet, even from prison, Rick's influence could be heard. His style, his flow, his storytelling fingerprints appeared in the work of countless artists. Young MCA studied his delivery, his ability to create vivid worlds with words. In a way, his absence only made his presence larger.
I seen that tonight. Learn from the best, man. Yes, brother.
Appreciate it.
So I'm very thankful, very thankful. Could never thank the Creator enough.
Rick served about 5 years in prison before being released in 1996. By then, hip-hop was bigger than ever, and so was the myth of Slick Rick. He walked out of prison not just as a rapper returning to the game, but as a symbol.
Is Public Enemy, no brainer. Eric B. and Rakim, Eric B. is president. It Takes Two, Rob Bass, Easy Rock, rest in peace, Easy Rock. The Children's Story, Slick Rick, wait. Mona Lisa, Slick Rick, wait. Lottie Dottie, Slick Rick, yeah, let's go there.
Yep. Right here, Slick Nas.
But his freedom was short-lived. Because Rick had been born in London, he wasn't a U.S. citizen. And for the Immigration and Naturalization Service, what we now know as ICE, his criminal conviction was grounds for deportation. Almost immediately after his release, immigration authorities tried to send him back to the United Kingdom.
He is a pioneer in the world of rap, but now Slick Rick is in danger of being deported from the U.S.
For Rick, who has spent most of his life in the Bronx and built his entire career in America, the idea of being forced out of the country was devastating. What followed was another long battle. This time, not in criminal court, but in immigration court. A battle that would drag on for over a decade.
Joy and Elliott, Slick Rick has been in a Bradenton detention center for the past 6 months. Now, immigration agents arrested the rap veteran on a cruise ship that was docked in Miami, and now they say his felony record may prevent him from living in the U.S. But now at age 37, Slick Rick, whose real name is Ricky Walters, is dressed in a faded blue prison uniform and canvas shoes.
I feel sad inside, you know what I mean? Because I feel like I'm fighting a losing case, you know? It's like I'm gonna get sent to England. All of my family is here, my wife, my kids and everything, my whole ties, my job, you know, everything I built is here, you know?
For most artists, release from prison is a second chance. A chance to get back into the studio, reconnect with fans, and rebuild a career. But for Slick Rick, the moment he stepped out of prison in 1996, his freedom was immediately put in jeopardy. Because he was born in London and never became a naturalized U.S. citizen, his felony conviction made him a target for deportation. The Immigration and Naturalization Service moved quickly, trying to strip him of his residency and send him back to the United Kingdom.
British-born rapper who was recently inducted into the Hip Hop Hall of Fame struggles to see why immigration officials refuse his request to bond out of jail.
And why won't the INS let you bond out of here?
Yeah, they say like I'm a flight risk. I don't feel like I'm a flight risk. I mean, I've been in the country for 6 years, crime-free. You know, not a ticket, nothing. You know what I mean? When I originally committed my crime, I got bailed out. That's a time that would have been a flight risk. You know what I mean? And I came and did my time and everything.
Rick had spent most of his life in New York. His family, his career, his entire identity, all of it was rooted in the Bronx and in the hip-hop community. Being forced out would have been the final blow. So he fought.
Joy and Elliott, Slick Rick has been in a Bradenton detention center for the past 6 months. Now, immigration agents arrested the rap veteran on a cruise ship that was docked in Miami, and now they say his felony record may prevent him from living in the U.S.
Throughout the late 1990s and into the 2000s, Slick Rick battled the government to remain in the United States. He was arrested multiple times by immigration authorities. At one point, he was held without bail for over a year while his case was argued in court. It wasn't just a legal struggle, it was a public one. Hip-hop fans rallied behind him. Artists, activists, and even politicians spoke out, arguing that Slick Rick wasn't a danger to society. He was an icon who had already paid for his mistakes.
He was convicted for second-degree attempted murder for shooting one of his security guards, his cousin in New York. Walter served 5 years and 12 days in prison. The U.S. law states that any non-citizen who serves more than 5 years in prison must be deported. And the additional 12 days he served may be 12 days too many.
But the government wasn't convinced. Deportation orders loomed over his head like a dark cloud For more than a decade, every time it looked like Rick's career might finally regain momentum, immigration troubles dragged him back into uncertainty.
He's a convicted felon. That makes him deportable.
While Slick Rick was serving his time, he won the right to stay in the United States. Now, the INS appealed and he won. Immigration agents appealed again, he lost, and now he's back in jail.
It seems like they need some kind of humane monitoring system in place to say, okay, like weed out the good and the bad or whatever the case, you know what I mean? Because right now, everybody's just getting put in one big get out the country thing, you know what I mean?
But when he was brought into the INS custody, at that point we had to take him in and place him under removal proceedings. Therefore, that just means he's going to be returned to his home country.
And yet, even in the face of all that turmoil, Slick Rick refused to disappear. He returned to the stage, performing in sold-out shows where fans cheered for the storyteller they had missed. He collaborated with younger artists who had grown up idolizing him. In 1999, he released The Art of Storytelling, his fourth studio album, and the first recorded fully outside of prison walls since his debut. The album featured appearances from Nas, Outkast, and Snoop Dogg, bridging generations of hip-hop. Critics praised it as proof that Rick's pen was still sharp, his flow still unique, his influence still undeniable. For artists like Nas, Slick Rick was more than just a rapper. He was a blueprint. Nas once called him one of his biggest influences, especially on albums like Illmatic, where storytelling was central. Snoop Dogg credited Slick Rick's style as an inspiration for his own smooth delivery. And Andre 3000 of Outkast often cited Rick's ability to bring characters to life in rhyme as a reason Outkast pushed creativity in their own music. In many ways, Slick Rick's voice was present in the DNA of late 90s and early 2000s hip-hop, even if his personal legal struggles kept him from being as visible as his peers. If you are enjoying this content, please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. After years of uncertainty, in May 2008, a turning point finally arrived. New York Governor David Paterson granted Slick Rick a full and unconditional pardon for the attempted murder charges from the 1990 shooting. The pardon didn't erase what happened, but it meant one critical thing. Rick could no longer be deported. After nearly 2 decades of living under threat, Slick Rick was finally secure in the country he called home. For Rick, it was a moment of redemption, a recognition that while he had made a terrible mistake in 1990, he had paid his debt to society and lived as a positive influence in the years since. With the cloud of deportation finally gone, Slick Rick embraced his role as a hip-hop elder statesman. He wasn't chasing hits or trying to compete with younger artists. Instead, he performed selectively, appeared on collaborations, and reminded fans why they fell in love with his voice in the first place. His influence only grew with time. In 2018, he was awarded the VH1 Hip Hop Honors. Fashion icons celebrated his bold style, from the oversized gold chains to the eye patch that once symbolized an accident, but had become part of his myth.
Come from sometimes, you know what I mean? Keep it real, you know? We took an English language, we slanged it up, you know what I mean? And we just took it, we ran with it, and we created hip hop, became a $1 billion industry, you know what I mean? Don't forget where it came from. And as long as you got morals, as long as you got morals, kid, Cat will always be interested in your behind.
He got, you know, Slick Rick got legitimate beef that he might be the best ever, too.
Younger generations who might not have lived through the golden era discovered him through samples, interviews, and the respect paid to him by the likes of Jay-Z, Drake, and Kendrick Lamar. Slick Rick became more than just a rapper. He became a symbol of resilience. Someone who had lived through fame, violence, prison, and legal battles, yet remained an icon.
Like Slick Rick, you know what I mean? That's like my idol right there. Like, you know what I mean? I get a lot of my storytelling from Slick Rick, you know what I mean?
Slick Rick's story is one of hip-hop's most complex. On one hand, he is a pioneer, a lyrical genius, and one of the greatest storytellers rap has ever known. On the other hand, his career was derailed by a moment of violence that could have ended tragically. The 1990 shooting was a dark chapter, one born from paranoia, fear, and a family feud gone too far. It nearly cost him his life, his freedom, and his career. But what defines Slick Rick is not just the mistakes he made, but the way he endured them. He served his time. He fought for his right to stay in the country he called home. And he emerged not as a bitter man, but as a living legend whose artistry continues to inspire. Today, when Slick Rick steps on stage in his crown and jewels, the crowd doesn't see just a rapper. They see survival. They see history. They see a man who lived a cautionary tale, just like the ones he used to rhyme about, and came out the other side. His legacy reminds us that even our heroes are human, that even storytellers can become the story. And for Slick Rick, the story is still being written.